Hello good people, and welcome to another episode of Excel for Work, our virtual training in Microsoft Excel to help you save time, work smart and improve productivity at the office. So we continue with topic 2. Here we are looking at working with cells, ranges and tables, a very important fundamental topic for you to build on your calculations and data entry skills in Microsoft Excel. So let's switch to our learning objectives. At the end of this video, you should understand the process to name cells and ranges in Microsoft Excel. You should learn how to master quick calculations with ranges, and then ultimately learn how to create tables and use structured referencing for your calculations in Microsoft Excel. As you always do, let's start off with a blank sheet. You can do that using Shift F11. So Shift F11 inserts a blank sheet in my workbook. In our earlier video, we said that the basic unit for data entry in Microsoft Excel is the cell. So the cell is made up of a column and a row. The intersection is what creates a cell. So I'm currently in E5. Now I can override this default name, which is E5, using the name box. So when I stand in E5, you see in the name box I have E5 here. I can stand in the name box and give it another name. We normally do this to make it easier to reference, especially when you are working in other parts of your workbook. If you are in any other cell, you can activate the name box using Alt F3. So Alt F3, I want to give E5 a new name. Let's call this Finex. So I have named this Finex. Now Finex will refer to E5 and any entry that I make here. So example, if I put in 15%, okay, and I do equal to Finex, I'm basically referring to 15%, and I can use this in any calculation. So that is a cell and how we name a cell. Now let's move on to a range. What is a range? A range is a selection of more than one cell. So if I highlight more than one cell, this is a range. Same way we were able to name a cell, we can also use the same method to name a range. So first I highlight a range, I can go to my name box, and then I can name this. For this purpose, let's name this numbers, and I press enter. Don't forget. So when I press numbers, when I press enter, I now have my named range called numbers. I can put in any random numbers here. So in Excel, you can generate random numbers using the function run between. So run between starts with a bottom number. I can put in 10 and then a top number, which is 100. So what I'm saying is I need random numbers between 10 and 100. Control enter, and I have this range of numbers. With random numbers, they change when you do any activity. So I want to make this absolute values. So I'll copy Control C and then paste special using Control Alt V. So Control Alt V opens the paste special, and then I select values to paste over. So these are my random numbers, and they are in a range that I have named as numbers. Okay, and then I can multiply this by Finex, all without selecting a cell or the range with my mouse. So because I have dynamic arrays, when I press enter, it just spells the calculation multiplying 15% through my random numbers. If you don't have dynamic arrays, you can do the first one and then copy down. So this is just an intro to see how we can name a cell, name a range, and how we can work with it. Let's switch to application sheets and learn how we can apply this. So we have this sales data here, and my goal is to calculate commission for each agent. Now the commission sits in C13. I may be referring to this in other parts of my workbook, so to stop me from coming here every time, I can name this using Alt F3. So I can name this rate. So once I name this rate, it means I can easily reference this and use it in my calculation. So now that we've named this rate, let's calculate revenue. We want to insert revenue between selling price and commission. one neat way to do this is to highlight the area you want to insert this new range, okay, and then press Ctrl Shift plus and you get a prompt. So I want to shift the cells to the right, making way for my revenue calculation. So I'm going to name this revenue, and I'm going to calculate the first revenue for the first sales agent, so 5,000 times selling price, okay, and then I can highlight this, go down with my down arrow, and then Ctrl D to copy down, Ctrl Shift 1 to convert this to a comma separated 2 decimal place. Ideally numbers should be sitting aligned to the right, but this range is formatted to center align. So I can do that using the Alt keys combination, Alt HAR, to align this to the right. I can knock off some of the decimals using Alt H9, Alt H9 2 times, okay, to give me a no decimal comma separated number. So I have my revenue now, and I want to calculate my commission. Here I want to introduce you to another way to name ranges. We can name the ranges using the headers on top of the range. So as an example, if I want to highlight this range and name it quantity, I just have to include the header. Okay, so let me do same for all these three. With the header included, I can go to formulas, and then I'll use this create from selection. The shortcut is Ctrl Shift F3. So basically what this is doing is that it detects that there's some text on top of the range that you've selected. It wants to use this as the name of the numbers here. So I'm going to click OK. So once I click OK, you realize that if I come here and then I call revenue, revenue now refers to this range. So I now have my inputs for calculating commission, which is basically my rate, okay, times my revenue. Say, so I can just reference them like this, and I'll press enter, and then I have my dynamic spell, I have my dynamic array. So again, Ctrl Shift down to select, Alt HAR to right align. Now with these ranges, I can easily calculate my average quantity. So here I can come in here and then call average, which is my function, and then put in quantity. So by doing this, I have highlighted quantity, which contains my numbers, and I have my answer here. Same with selling price, so average selling price, okay, and then I have this. And if I want to calculate total commission, again I can highlight the header, go down, and I can use Alt F3 to name commission, or I can come to formulas and then create this from selection. The thing with naming ranges, whether you are using the name box or creating from selection, is that you cannot use spaces. Okay, so you cannot have a space, let's say between selling and price. You would have to use an underscore. You cannot use any name that is similar to a cell reference, so AZ57 or B1000 cannot be used, and then RNC also cannot be used as well. So with this out of the way, I can use create from selection and then name this commission. I must say that while we are here, if you want to see all the names that you have given in this workbook, you can go to name manager, and then you see a list of all the names and the reference. So where they refer, you can edit, change the reference, delete, and so on. Okay, so I can now calculate my total commission. So I can now calculate my total commission by calling commission, and I'll close my bracket. So one neat way of saving time on mouse work, selecting ranges and all that, is to name a cell or name a range. Now let's go to tables. We understand that naming cells and ranges make it easier for us to reference, but even easier is converting your range into tables. So we have the sales data. So it's data for some Apple Store sales, and we want to convert this data into a table. In Excel, a table is a dedicated object for storing data and for creating structured calculations, which we call structured referencing. So by default in the office, you are likely to store your payroll, inventory, fixed asset data in a range. But if it's going to grow and you're going to do further calculations or use it in a pivot table, it is best to convert it into a table. Now, to convert a range into a table, it is good to have your data block, in this case the area starting from the header all the way to the content, detached from any unrelated content. So this is my data block. This is the header of my data. It really doesn't form any part of this table, so it is best always to leave an empty row or an empty column to have your data set unattached to any unrelated data. So to do that, I'm going to highlight this range, Ctrl Shift plus to shift the cells down. Okay, and then I'll clear this duplicate fill using Alt HEA to erase all. So ideally, you should have something we call a fire belt around your data set to make it easier to convert, so there's nothing that is unrelated attached to it. So I'm going to convert this by standing in any cell, and I'm going to press Ctrl T. That's the shortcut. If you don't want to use a shortcut with this layout, you can go to Insert and then insert a table right here. So I insert a table and it's able to define the dimension of my table. I confirm that my table begins with headers and my range is here, so I'll click OK. So this is my table. It gives me what we call banded rows, okay, as the formatting. I have some filter icons. It must be said that it is not these features that make it a table. To know whether you are in a table setting or not, you should see this table design contextual tab or menu when you stand in any table area. So if I stand outside, I lose that menu. If I stand in, then the table design pops up. So that's one neat way to know whether you are working in a table or not. Again, you can change the table styles. So as an example, you see these black border lines. I can reset the table style and probably use another one. Okay, so if I prefer a green, I can highlight this, right click, and then apply and clear formatting. Okay, so it gives me a new style. So the table design allows you to structure, analyze, and aggregate the content of your table. Normally, the first thing we do is to name the table. So to make it easy to reference the table, I want to name this sales. Okay, so what this means is that in any part of my workbook, if I'm doing calculations, I can easily reference this object, which is the table, by calling equal to sales. Okay, so this highlights the entire content of the table. Again, if I want to highlight any particular column or field in my table, I can put a square bracket against the name of the table, and it produces all the fields of my table as well as different parts of my table. Makes it easier to do calculations. So as an example, I want to select quantity. I can select quantity using the tab key and then close this. So you see that quantity has been selected. If I want to select selling price, I can go sales, open square bracket, and then call selling price, close my square bracket, and then this has been highlighted. Okay, now the thing with tables is that you can feed the table directly into your pivot tables or even to Power Query, and if new data comes in, the tables automatically expand, and then your calculations or your transformation with data also update as well. No need to resize your table when new data comes in. Another advantage with tables is that if I add a new column, so in this example, let's attempt to calculate revenue. If I add revenues, the table will automatically add a new column to my existing table. So you realize that revenue is now part of my table, so I can easily reference this using the same structured reference. Okay, now another advantage with tables is that if you calculate, it automatically fills down, okay, if that setting is enabled. So here I'm calculating selling price times quantity. When I hit enter, I have my calculation filling down all the way to the end. So tables offer us a very neat way to store data, and if you want to aggregate data as well in a table design, okay, you have what we call the total row. So the total row gives this temporal total row that allows you to do any of these aggregations. So sum, min, max, count, you can do all those calculations in here. You can always deactivate the total row and then add new data to your table. So with this out of the way, let's see if we can use what we call structured referencing to calculate some values from this table. So if I want to calculate revenue, I can start with my function, which is sum. I'll call the name of the table Tabits, and I get the highlight of my sales table. I bring my square bracket to produce the fields and components of this table, and I'm looking for revenue, so I'll call revenue and then close my square bracket. So it's that simple. So without the mouse, I can now calculate my total sales. Okay, if I want to do average, same method, average, call the name of the table, bring a square bracket and then call revenue, close my square bracket, close my normal bracket, and then I have revenue. Okay, so you can practice along and calculate the rest for max, min, and the count of transactions. Another advantage of using tables is that if you have any calculations, as I mentioned, and you have new data, when you add the new data, these calculations automatically update. So I have new data here and I want to copy and paste, but I want to use the current structure of the data set, the one I'm bringing in, to show you a neat way to reorder the columns of your data set. So you observe that if I come to the original data set, my data starts with dates, okay, all the way to revenue. I'm going to copy this header and then come to my new data area and then put this side by side. Okay, so when you see this, you realize that the original data starts with date, but my date is locked in the middle here. Instead of cutting and pasting and moving the columns about, I can do this with one simple cut and insert. So selecting the date header, Control Shift down. To go back up, I'll use Control Backspace. Then I will cut this, take position where I want to insert this, and then use Control Shift plus. So just like that, it inserts without any extra step. Okay, so I have date, salesperson, and then let me do same for customer. So I'm reordering customer, Control Shift down, Control Backspace, Control X to cut, stand here, Control Shift plus, and then I just change the order. Okay, so I have date, salesperson, customer, product, and then I think the order is fine now. Okay, so I can now take the content starting from here, Control Shift right, Control Shift down, Control C, come here, and then when I come to the bottom of my table, I can just paste this. It adds to the new table. Okay, I can easily highlight the entire column of my dates, okay, by putting my arrow on top. If I see this down black arrow, I can select it, the whole content is selected. Control Shift hash, okay, to format date. And if I go to my calculations, you observe that my calculations have automatically gone up by about 1 million, which is caused by the new data that I brought in. So with tables, all your existing calculations, even with pivot tables, update. You don't have to resize any dimension. Now let me show you another useful application of tables. I can stand in a new worksheet and then do calculations remotely on that data set. So without switching to this sheet, I can easily find answers to these questions from the table. So what is total sales? I can easily answer it using sum. Okay, the name of the table, sales, bring my square bracket, and then I'll call revenue, close my square bracket, and then I'll close my final bracket. So this is the figure that we had. Average sales is equal to average. I call my sales data, I call my sales revenue, close my square bracket, and then I have my average sales. What is the total number of employees? So for this question, we need to extract the unique employees. So we realize that if I come here to the column that contains my salespersons, I have duplicates. Okay, if you are using a recent version of Excel, there's a function called unique. So unique, okay, in the sales table, and if I go to salespersons, okay, so this would actually spell the unique names. Okay, so I can come and then wrap a count A. So count A is useful for counting non-empty cells, so especially with text you can use count A. I have 12 as my total number of employees. So if you are using tables, most of the calculations you do in other worksheets in the workbook can be done without physically referencing the tables. So I'll leave these last two questions for you to practice. So you just come here, create a new commission by using the rate that we calculated, the commission rate that we calculated above. Okay, and then you can use that to calculate your highest commission and your lowest commission using max in this case and then min in this case. So just to recap what we've learned in this episode, we learned how to name cells and ranges. We learned how to master quick calculations using ranges. We learned how to create tables and then use structured referencing to do our calculations. It would be good if you could download the workbook and practice along, and we hope to see you in the next episode. Thanks for joining us. If this video was helpful and you would like to receive more of these videos directly on your WhatsApp, you can send ad to this WhatsApp number. We'll add you to our broadcast list so you receive our videos directly. You can also visit our YouTube channel, Finance Skills Hub. All our old videos are here. Please subscribe for notification of new videos or connect with us on any of these social media handles. Thank you so much for watching.